let's play a little bit of a game, because today, Jack Swagger, otherwise known as Jake Hager, has announced that he has retired from professional wrestling. So
Is that a
in
small
honor,
violin playing right now?
yeah, in honor of his career, we're going to play a game which might just be insulting his career, because we're going to play creating a Mount Rushmore of forgettable WWE / World Heavyweight Champions. And I'm going to kick us off. And I'm going to go out the gate with Jack Swagger. I mean, he's the one who inspired this game. But up next, another one who held the title in the same era, the Great Khali. I mean, I forget that all the time. What are they doing there? Another one has to be Alberto Del Rio as well. And I think he had a couple of reigns too.
He did.
But I mean, they were always short. They were always, rubbish. And you just forgot, especially when he left the company, that he was ever meant to be a main event guy. It was bizarre. It really, really was.
Winning the only 40-man Royal Rumble too.
You're right. I try and forget about that. I try to get it out of my head. But the last one, and maybe I'm going to get a little bit of heat for this off you guys, but I'm going to go with Sergeant Slaughter, right? Because growing up, I always, and I mean, he kind of was, but I always looked at this guy when I'd see him in like the WWE Kids magazines, because they used to have him as like a legend in there, as like the definition of a jobber. Then I got 2K, and I still thought he was a complete and utter jobber. Now, of course, as I gotten older, he wasn't really a jobber, although at times maybe he was a little bit. But even still, the fact that this guy at one point held the biggest prize in the company, I mean, it makes my head explode. I always forget it. So there we have it. My Mount Rushmore of forgettable World Heavyweight Champions. What about you, Anthony?
Okay, this would have been a lot more controversial if you asked me to name the 4 top ones. You got to go Swagger. I mean, that's an obvious one. You mentioned Great Khali. I think that's another. These are 2 names that you haven't mentioned. Kane. He's only had 2 world title reigns, both incredibly short. None shorter than his first, less than 24 hours. He won it in a first blood match, and if he didn't win, he was going to set himself on fire. And the last one you may not even have heard of, Ben, but you may have heard of the son, Sean Stasiak, aka Meat at one point, Stan Stasiak. This is a guy that held the title for 9 days before he dropped to Bruno to begin Bruno's second long reign of 3 years or whatever it was. So yeah, that would be my 4.
That's actually a hell of a shout. He's somebody which I'd completely forgotten about. I do know who he is, because I can't remember what it was, but he was involved in like some wrestling story I was reading about a little while ago. But a fantastic, fantastic shout, which I never would have guessed.
You mean you forgot?
Yeah, exactly. Fair enough. He belongs on this mountain of Rushmore. But what about you, Shad? Who are you picking?
So y'all picked a lot of good ones. I'll try to throw some ones that y'all haven't named. The first one is not too far long ago. It was during the good old pandemic era, and it was The Miz. The Miz with that horrific storyline tied with taking the briefcase from Otis, cashing in on Drew McIntyre, to only lose in that favor that he had with Bobby Lashley. And I have been using that meme all week with MJF because I feel like Bobby Lashley is going to do what he did to The Miz to MJF to be AEW champion at some point. But that's for the future with that. The Miz, it is so forgettable. You forget about that Money in the Bank briefcase winner that was Otis during the pandemic. Yeah, man. So I got The Miz being on that. I did have Jack Swagger on mine as well. Because I mean, it's one of those cases where, like, yeah, he ain't do a whole lot with the Money in the Bank. But speaking of that, what about Dolph Ziggler, huh? Like, we remember the amazing cash in, but the title reign after that, it wasn't too amazing. I believe he got hurt a little bit, so it was quite a short title reign. So we're gonna go with The Miz. I'm gonna put Ziggler on there as well because I also think you forget Ziggler was a world champion. I feel like he's like a notable guy who puts people over. Also, just a historic intercontinental and mid card guy. So we got him on there. I'm gonna also put Goldberg's 2020 title reign on there because I think as a community, we want to forget about that. The best thing
To be clear, this is champions, not championship reigns.
Oh, this is. I thought this was the reigns that were.
No. This is champions. Full stop.
Oh my goodness, man! Now I feel like I have completely butchered my entire list.
I'll let you know now before the Instagram post goes up of Goldberg being a forgettable champion.
Okay, we'll take Goldberg out of here because that's disrespectful. All right, I'm gonna stick with the other two though. We're gonna stick with the other two that I had. We're gonna have Ziggler on there. And then what was the first one I said? The Miz, right? So the Miz, Ziggler. I will also put Finn Balor on there because it ain't really do a whole bunch of lot, you know? So we're going to put Balor on there. And then for the last one, I think I will have to got a couple ones that I'm thinking about that I wrote down on my list. I think I'm going to go with Jack. I'll just put Jack Swagger on there. We got to have a common name. So, yeah, I got The Miz. I got Ziggler. I got Jack Swagger. And, yeah, man. I thought this was the actual title reigns.
No. Just champions. So stop. But a great list. A great list.
Yeah.
Tony says,
I wouldn't
mention Swagger.
I'm not putting gender on there because I think everybody
we the people did.
Gender.
Yes, Shad, I agree with you. I'm going to be honest, guys, right? When I planned this segment today, I was planning to go on a huge rant at one of you guys for picking Jinder Mahal, but I'm really glad you didn't. But Fernando did, so unfortunately for you, Fernando, I'm going to have to go off on you for a second, right? Because Jinder, I genuinely think, and this is where I'm going to get a lot of hate, but I genuinely think it's top 5 most memorable title changes. And for that reason, I don't think anyone's going to forget Jinder Mahal. Did it, under-deliver? Yes. But nobody is ever going to forget about it because a jobber randomly for like 6 months became the top guy on a brand. It was crazy.
I know, Ben, you don't want to hinder the gender.
Exactly.
But, that's one of those trivia questions you'll get for years from now. Who's the first member of 3MB to be a world champion? Everyone's going to pick Drew, but it wasn't Drew. It wasn't Drew. It was Jinder in WWE anyway.
Donnie said Vince.
That's another shout.
I mean, that's
technically Vince held that in the ECW one for the cup of coffee.
But there are just so many. I say there are so many, actually. Considering how long the title's been around, I mean, there's 10 forgettable champions? That's actually quite impressive.
I gotta be honest, I think it would be a more controversial list of the greatest. Because I have 4 in mind, and I know it would mean omitting somebody is going to piss somebody off. Like, I know that. I know that for a fact.
We'll do that at a later date. That is for sure. Also, we're going to do the women's at a later date as well. And I feel like, especially considering during the Divas era, there wasn't, much thought put into. We might actually have to cap it at the new era because at the Divas era, everyone was forgettable.
Does Lay Cool count as 1 champion or 2? Because they split the belt.
Look, I will say this: if we do a women's one and I'm not on that, if anybody puts Nikki Ash on there, we're gonna have to box, man, because Nikki Ash is better than this Wyatt 6 character. She's better than Nikki Cross.
What? I forgot she held the title until you just said it.
Too.
So she might be on my list.
That was during the superhero run, right?
Forget about that.
Nikki or whatever the heck it was.
Nikki Ash is better than Nikki Cross by a lot.
I won't.
They're not 2 separate people.
But on that note, guys,
she was almost a superhero. She wasn't a superhero. She was almost a superhero.
That's right.
That's
Lady
true.
Molly was.
Yeah, that is also true.